Welcome to Market Makers, a bold podcast featuring unfiltered conversations with the leaders truly shaping the future of real estate, PropTech, and SaaS. Real insights, real operators, real conversations with the people building what's next. Our episode today is cracking product market fit, and we didn't come to play it safe. We're kicking off with a question every real estate and PropTech leader is currently wrestling with. What does product market fit actually look like in this market? Sean Soderstrom, CEO of Courted, and Drew Fabrikant, CEO of Scout, join us for a candid conversation on building traction in a crowded landscape where change is the only constant. And AI, well, we know it's changing everything. We'll get into why most brokerages confuse activity for traction, the early signals that prove or kill product market fit, how to stand out when everybody claims innovation, what scaling actually requires in 2026. And last but not least, a fun segment on what our career paths might have been otherwise. If you're serious about building something that lasts, press play now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Market Makers podcast. This episode, we are cracking product market fit in PropTech, and we are absolutely thrilled to have Sean Soderstrom, co-founder and CEO of Courted, and Drew Fabrikant, founder at Scout, to be on the podcast with us today. So welcome, both of you. Glad to have you on, but would love to hear a little bit about you.
First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm Sean. As you said, I work with Courted today. In the past, spent 7 years at McKinsey in strategy consulting role and building advanced analytics solutions, and also spent some time leading expansion at one of the largest brokerages in the country.
Love it. All right, Drew, you're up.
Thank you, Lauren Henss.
I love it.
It's wonderful to be on this podcast. Fabrikant, CEO of Scout. I've had many past careers. I actually started in sports and sports law specifically. Did some M&A work as an attorney at Skadden Arps, big global law firm. Went down to Wall Street, started a multifamily office down there. Also included some brokerage activity, did some real estate development. I have a esports platform and bar in New York, and then for the last 10 years or so, I have been working through the PropTech sector. And Scout is it's a go-to-market machine that helps a lot of real estate agents, PropTech, home service vendors get through to their ICP. And we also have a large data sales platform.
So today's episode is all about product market fit, and maybe we should take a second before diving into it to define, like, Sean and Drew, how do you define product market fit and think about it on a high level?
My kind of sarcastic answer is, if you have to ask if you have product market fit, you don't have it. Which obviously is not enough for this podcast. Listen, I think it's a combination of things. Solving important problems for customers, which is often expressed in metrics like repeat engagement. Obviously, revenue is something that follows. I think the breadth of things that people are using within your platform, are they doing the things that drive value for them in whatever SaaS platform or other product that you're delivering? So I think it's kind of a combination of things. And we'll get into all of the different ways I and Drew have not experienced those. So I don't want to steal too much of that thunder. But at a high level, that's what I think.
Product market fit is an interesting thing. For us, it's constantly moving. It's constantly evolving. You put through a lot of products, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ingenuity, and you see a lot of what sticks. Like what Sean said, what are they using? What do they pay for, and what do they stick around to continue to use? And are they using the product in the way that you intended it to be used? And I think there's a lot of versions of product market fit, especially as your company evolves, as your product evolves. Just because and I guess ICP and PMF are two totally different things, and we'll probably dive into that later. Right? It's hard to define, but when you see it.
So let's dive into it a little bit deeper, and we can go into your personal stories in terms of where you maybe thought you were going towards product market fit and then you didn't have it. But what do you think right now is the most common lie that founders tell themselves about product market fit? Like what's the most common thing out there right now that you would say?
I can tell a little bit from our experience. I'm not sure if I have the pattern recognition across all of my peers. I think from our perspective, we first launched Corded as a network for agents. And so the agent was the core user. Today it's more the brokerage. And we had a lot of agents signing up, getting first engaged in the platform. And I think we confused successful distribution with product market fit. And so we were successful at getting people excited enough to come to the platform, but we realized that actually wasn't enough. And it was kind of repeated engagement, unsolicited users coming back to the platform to have additional things solved, which was the thing that we were missing. And so, for us, it's like top of funnel momentum doesn't equal product market fit. I think that we were excited, investors were excited, the vision felt right. As the usage decayed on our side, we realized there was like no clear reason for agents to return week over week over week to the platform. And so I think just the number of people on your platform, to be succinct, isn't necessarily the sign of product market fit. It's more of that kind of, in our case, the ongoing engagement was the thing that maybe the lie that we were telling ourselves that ultimately, forced us to make some serious changes.
Yeah, I think Sean and I are going to have a lot of similar stories here. And we essentially went through the same thing and identified, what we thought was product market fit, but maybe in the wrong segment, the wrong distribution channel. And you kind of get to this place where you realize that you can build something that is perfect and solves a problem that everybody needs and everybody wants. But just because you're offering that to market doesn't mean that your market or your consumer is the right consumer for your business. And you have to, once you've attained product market fit, you have to service that customer. The customer has to stick around. And in certain industries, and real estate is one of them, you can think that you have a B2B SaaS tool because you're selling to real estate agents. But in reality, this is a consumer-driven business, right? And I think, throughout the rest of this podcast, I'm probably going to say the quiet part out loud a number of times. But if you're selling to a real estate agent in particular, and sometimes even teams, these are not people who run businesses as businesses per se, right? You asked about the P&L, you asked about the balance sheet, and you get nebulous answers. So I would say for anybody who's going into a real estate distribution channel, really have a hard think about who your customer is your town. What do you think the town is your ICP? What do you think it is? And get very granular in terms of where in the real estate industry you think product market fit will be. Will it be at the individual agent level, at the team level, at the brokerage level, or elsewhere within the organization?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Sean, like you brought up the specific example of starting off as a platform for agents. So like what was your signal that you needed to shift that?
We were overweight on signups and surface level engagement, but I think it masked the absence of a real job to be done on the platform. And so I think repeat usage, again, without prompting folks to come back, they shouldn't have to get an email from you in order to want to return to the platform. I think we noticed an absence of agents building habits around the solution that we built. And so if folks aren't building habits around and routines around what you're offering, then you're a long way away from getting them to want to pay for the solution itself. And so this conversation is about product market fit. Product market fit typically will precede revenue. Although in today's day and age, that paradigm is, changing. But for us, it was the one that we would trust now more is, people expressing that there's a core, repeatable, difficult problem that we're solving. And the way that we could measure that qualitatively is asking them, but quantitatively is they're coming back over and over and over again. And they're doing things that you can directly attribute to being valuable in their business.
Yeah. Drew, did you have a similar situation with Scout where you started off in like one direction and then had to pivot?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Sean is talking about, building habits that people want to come back to the platform over and over and over again is especially difficult in an industry where the residential real estate agent, and I know we keep coming back here, but there was a study done by T360. I think it said that real estate agents have 273 individual activities that they're responsible for throughout the life cycle of a transaction. If you have 273 things that you have to do, doing one thing multiple times is nearly impossible, right? Agents wake up every single day. They say they know they need to prospect, but they still don't do it. It's the lifeblood of their business. We identified that just people are very busy and they have 1,000 things that they have to do. So we tried to solve that problem in a different way. We anticipated that nobody would continue to come back to our platform on a daily or weekly basis because life just gets in the way, no matter how important it is. So we chose to solve from an automation and workflow perspective where we built, call it a 20-minute onboard and a button that just says, keep going, continue this service after the first, call it month or period has expired. So we definitely found that early on where you could build something that is 100% necessary, is 100% useful, is wanted, is needed, is paid for, but that still isn't going to build the habits that you need to be built in order to continue to use your platform. So we chose to tackle automation.
I think one of the difficult things in this industry is because of the variety of things that an agent or a brokerage has to accomplish in a day, to Drew's point, people don't want 273 different logins to platforms that don't speak to one another. So you could take that and you could say, okay, great. Well, then I should deliver something that does more than one thing for the customer, which is exactly what we tried to do in the first version of Courted for Agents. We tried to do a number of things. And the reality was we didn't do any of them well. We did none of them well. You could do a few different things. It was broader functionality than we have now 5 years later. But because it wasn't specifically solving any problems that were painful, it was generally interesting and specifically useless, if I'm honest, right? And so I think the journey that potentially a successful company would go on is hopefully to pick something narrow, focus on doing that thing well. Once you've earned the right from the customer's perspective to do another thing, then hopefully you can get to that point where you offer them multiple products or multiple services. But to start with breadth as opposed to depth, I think is a bit of a dangerous spot to be in.
I think you'll see, especially early on in any company's journey, as they're searching for this elusive thing called product market fit, they throw a lot against the wall. And we were no different, right? We had to build a tremendous number of features, functionality. We've built things that we were sure were the next big thing. And within a week and a half, we realized, oh my gosh, we just invested 2.5 months into something that is going to fail utterly, terribly, and you'll never see it again. And you make a lot of those mistakes, but if you pick something narrow and it hits, you win. If you pick a lot of different things, you spend a lot of wasted time figuring out what works. I think there's a delicate balance because sometimes you'll build a product or a tool or a feature that you have no idea, you can ask everybody in the market if they want it. And it turns out maybe you weren't asking the right questions of your consumer or they weren't giving you the right answer. And especially difficult when you're trying to build things, I think, out of thin air and disrupting markets and creating things that have not existed. It's always a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of luck involved.
And I think it's also because when we look at products, they don't always fail because the tech is bad, right? They also fail because the ICP was wrong. It's really hard sometimes getting the ICP. I mean, you and I have gone back and forth through many times on, different types of, what ICP is. But what's harder? And I know you guys are going to come back to me with an answer that is going to say both in some way when I talk about this question. But what would you say is harder, building a product that agents actually love or building a product that you can actually, agents, we can deploy at scale? Because you have to do both, right? So what would you say is harder? Because you have two things. You have the agent that you've got to, obviously, in terms of one audience, right? You have the brokerage on the other side of the audience, right? And obviously you want both because you want the brokerage to be able to scale that to as many agents as possible, right? So Give me your thoughts on that.
I'm the person on the call who hasn't successfully delivered a product to agents. Delivering products to agents is extremely difficult from my own
It's
experience.
so hard.
I think what you're describing, Lauren, is interesting, which is you're thinking of the brokerage as a go-to-market conduit to the agent
Correct.
who's the ultimate buyer. We took a wholly different approach once we pivoted, which was to sell and build a product specifically for the brokerages, and the agents don't log in at all.
Yep.
And it's more of a brokerage operating system than it is a tool that brokerages are passing on or paying on behalf of their agents. And so for us, that was a kind of a big unlock as we figured out who we wanted to build for. I think your other part of your question is how difficult is scaling and what does that look like? I think if you can serve one agent well, typically you can serve multiple agents well. So I don't think there's necessarily a product challenge there so much as a distribution challenge. And when you say, I agree with you, there have been a lot of, I'd say it a different way. There's a graveyard of really great tech companies in the PropTech space. Many of them fall down on distribution, right? It's hard for them to
100%.
go to market. And if you can't get the right types of folks signed up and even testing your product, you may not even know whether you have product market fit in the first place. And so distributions is important, and just in terms of identifying who are those people. I think the other component is, and Drew, I think would agree with me here. I think the agent community is a notoriously difficult community to research. By the very nature, these folks are very optimistic and they are good with people and they like to be very positive. And those are wonderful characteristics that make them really good at working with buyers, sellers, and renters. It makes it difficult when you're asking for honest feedback on a theoretical product that you haven't yet built. And
Very true.
that's the right way to test things if you followed kind of the human-centered design process. And what I've realized and come to appreciate is the importance of that function and how my background and my training prohibits me from actually doing that research. Because what I do and what a lot of founders, I think, would probably say about themselves is they come in with kind of first principles thinking and they come in with a hypothesis. Before the question is asked, they're looking to validate an answer. And if you start with that, you're not going to get the answers that are honest. And you will guide subconsciously or consciously guide the research subject, often an agent, towards the answer that you want them to say to you. And because they're so likely to want to agree with you, they will pick up on that and tell you the things that you want to hear.
They do. They do.
And so it's this kind of confounding problem where you're trying to do research, honest research. You want the right answers, but it's really hard to get it. And so what we did was we hired a kind of experiential design researcher who was kind of really focused on knowing how to ask unbiased questions, dictate how we built a product roadmap. And so that was a big unlock, and that didn't happen until far too late in our journey as a company.
Okay.
I would guide people to try to look for those highly talented, they're often called researchers, they're often called designers with kind of a research background, because those folks can do it far better than most, intelligent, but maybe over-eager founders.
How did you know you needed to take that step?
Drew is alluding to this. Another feature, we're one feature away. We're one update away. If we put this on mobile, if we do this, just turn the corner. The corner is one deployment away, right? And it was like doing that. We're racking our brains, and we realized we are, and this is even more true now today when you have really interesting AI-powered technology out there that can be fairly easily brought to market. We had a hammer looking for a nail, right? We had cool tech, an interesting database. Okay, if we package it this way and give it to them in this format, is this going to be the unlock? And we were not focusing on the user first. We were focusing on our tech first and saying, how can we adjust this spear to pierce their armor? And it's not the right way to think about it.
We took a much more simplistic approach. We did not hire anybody internally, mostly because we were limited in the funds, and I would have loved to have done it that way. But I think one of the simplest ways to find out, where to attack and where to prioritize things on your go-to-market list are, what is somebody willing to pay the most money for, right? And we always took a put your money where your mouth is approach and said, if you're willing to put down the money up front, and oftentimes we sold products that didn't exist. We were very transparent about that. We said, we don't have the capability of doing it today. It will cost us this much to do it. We will do it if you're willing to put the dollars forward. And we pre-sold a lot. We probably pre-sold our first 150 customers, on 3-month subscriptions when we didn't have the tech built yet, but it was coming. And it was kind of a double-edged sword. It's also very easy to sell something very shiny and promise what will be. And then, when you deliver, again, you find out what are people willing to use and what are they willing to stick around for. But fortunately, that worked for us. And we were able to have something so differentiated in the market that you could not get anywhere else, that people were willing to pay for it and wait. So I think for us, that was an important learning. It's like, is there actual demand? Or are you just building something that you think is going to be cool? And if I build it, it will come. They will come. This is not Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
No, it's
Well,
not.
I feel like that's such a lesson in ego too, of like letting something go that you thought you were like so convinced was going to be the thing. And then do you think that's the difference between successful and not successful? Like those prop tech companies who are sitting in the graveyard right now is because they had founders who couldn't get out of the way and like let it go and focus on something else that was actually going to work.
I still think it comes back to understanding the customer's problems. And then
And
to your
then
point,
something
Chanté, being
building.
a little bit agile about being willing to shift priorities. So I do think that's one thing. I also think to Drew's point, the human-centered design approach would encompass what they pay for today. Often those meetings start at a very strange place for the interviewee. It's also why I don't like running those interviews. Just like, tell me about what's painful in your life. And
Yeah.
they're like, I mean, in recruiting. And it's like, no, in your life. Okay, now in your work, okay, I have this big goal at my company and I don't think I can get there. Okay, great. What's painful? Blah, blah. Okay. So it will encompass all of the things that they pay for if the questions are kind of posed in the right way. There's, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but there is a pretty interesting open letter that is going around the industry right now. And
We talked about that last night, Drew and I
there's
did.
there's an accusation in said letter about kind of a dogmatic approach to just following through on something, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you can certainly point to examples where that's the case. I will say that I think in order to be successful in this role, you do need to have a willingness to just persist and to just keep going because you're constantly getting shut down. You're constantly getting rejected. Your launch is constantly not working as well as you wanted it to. And so this idea of, I'm going to stop at the first hurdle, that doesn't work. I think about these, we raised some money when we first started the business so we could afford to hire said design researcher. I think the investors that are making decisions at that stage of a business, so all the money that we ever raised was for a product that no longer exists, right? That's our story.
By the way, Sean, we have the same exact story. Raise money for
Okay, so
something
let's go a little deeper into that. But yeah.
Well, and so you think about, okay, so how could these investors possibly make money, or how could one be better than the other when they're putting money behind a product that doesn't exist? They're often picking jockeys, right?
Yeah.
They're picking people that they think will try so hard that when they inevitably hit the first wall, they'll keep going and they'll keep going and they'll keep going. And so I think that's what makes that job difficult, but also probably interesting. I don't know if I would have a kind of interest in doing that myself, but I think, yes, for us, we raised a total of $8 million on a product that we were really excited about at the time, but turns out very few other people other than our investors and us were excited about. So, we were in a situation where we had raised enough money that we could possibly pivot and get to the point where we could not have a down round and basically wipe out the entire cap table. And so the situation, if you're asking, Lauren, was we'd raised $8 million. We'd spent $6. We had spent $6 and like trying to get to the next feature, the next release. Let's make an app. Let's do all the stuff. And we said, okay, we have $2 million. We're spending, I think, $250,000 a month. We're not going to fire anybody. We have to design, develop, sell, and break even before we spend this $2 million. And that was the challenge. And so for us, that was an incredibly focusing experience because we went from doing a couple things poorly for agents to, we're going to reorient this platform. We're going to take the data infrastructure that we built. We're going to reorient this around recruitment, retention of agents. We're going to sell it to brokerages, not agents, and we're going to go like crazy. And there's a limited time frame along which we can actually get this done. And so we're not going to be broad. We're going to be incredibly focused. And we didn't have to let anyone go, and no one left. All of those people are still here with us.
Amazing.
Which is pretty exciting.
Great story.
So this idea, and potentially not one of the questions, but I'll just say it anyway. This kind of success is not linear in any way, at least in my experience. It's kind of ups and downs. It follows more like a sine wave. If anyone remembers their like high school physics, it's like up and down and up and down. And so depending, you ever ask a founder like how they're doing, it's like somewhere on that sine wave, and like the next day it could be down and the next day it could be up. You have to, it takes a little bit of, you have to kind of insulate yourself to the extent that you can from feeling so passionately about kind of exactly how the business is doing and having that kind of directly correlate to your emotional health. If anyone has figured that out, I'll send you my email. Please tell me. Mine is like directly correlated to how the business is doing. But yeah, that's the journey that you sign up for.
I'll take that one too, Sean. That's an incredible story, by the way. I think these are the stories that need to be shared, and people need to hear about. We hear so much about the successes and never the bumpy road to get there. And to come back to the initial question, such a catch-22. And we were talking about this investor shareholder letter that's out there right now. They talk a lot about hubris and some other not so nice terms. But you have a powerhouse of an organization, a market leader with over $5 billion to go to market, and ends up losing all of that money. To be a founder and to go into a new market and to do anything, you have to be crazy. And I remember getting on, exploratory phone calls with some of our potential customers, and somebody said, I can never imagine a world in which this should exist or I would ever use it or somebody should ever pay for it.
Wow. That's humbling.
Right? And the product obviously, took off and was successful, and we had over 150 people pay for it before it even existed.
Right.
That was maybe valid in their mind, but you have to have really thick skin and you have to get past that. Now, in our initial business model, we raised a couple $100,000 on our first instance, which was actually, it's like a home light model. And we were just routing leads. We were doing better lead gen, build a better mousetrap, create a little bit of alpha between the cost of acquisition and then distributing it and referral fees. And I remember we got a letter back from a VC saying, this is not a problem that deserves to be solved. And sometimes you have to listen to that. And sometimes, you take it with a grain of salt. It's just difficult discerning who you listen to and who you put full weight into.
But I think it's also, you're both extremely resilient, right? And you know how to pivot. And when something doesn't go well, you pivot accordingly and you know which levers to pull and what to do. But you have to be as a founder. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten alive, right?
You have to break through walls. You have to be willing to go right through them. And if you can't go through them, they're too hard. You have to go over them, around them, under them, or you have to figure out some kind of teleportation device to get to figure it out. And that's what being a founder is. It's solving all the really hard problems.
Yeah, I agree. Are we ready for like some fun fire round questions now?
I am.
Are we? Okay. What are one thing brokerages care about that founders constantly miss?
I think that this is a little bit of a biased answer. I think one of the things that is constantly in the mind of a broker or brokerage is, how can I position this to recruits such that it can help me to bring more people in? Or how can I sell this as a win inside the company? If I think about that in that way, I used to work at Compass. Compass spent $2 billion on building technology. The initial premise there was this technology is going to make the agents, let's say, 30% more productive. And as a result, Compass could charge 30% better splits to the brokerage than anybody else. And that's going to be much more profitable for Compass. I don't have any data on that, but I don't know if the Compass technology itself is providing a huge lift in the productivity of their own agents' businesses. But you should talk to a Compass agent about that. I'm not aware. What I will say is that the Compass tech, even when I was there, before it was built, was being used very successfully in the recruitment of agents. And there's real power in that. So I think founders who are selling really any product that touches an agent or enhances the agent's experience should try to understand how that can then be positioned by their customer in their own recruiting and retention conversations, and don't make it their work to do that. Do that work for them. Package it in a way that they can
Right.
easily disseminate it in their most important conversations, which are the conversations that help them get new or maintain the revenue streams that they currently have, because that's where the money's made. And so I think that's one thing that, whether your product is focused on recruitment or not, I think, particularly if it's not and it focuses on the agent value prop, try to make it easy for them to talk about it in those situations.
And I think like you bring up a good point, because leading digital transformation like I do currently, and then having to identify which products that we're going to add in that suite, because we literally blew up our entire tech stack, right? So what is the agent life cycle? What is their experience? Because they want to close more deals in less time. At the end of the day, that's what they want to do. So when we're looking at a product, and obviously we have ported, we have all these other kinds of things, but when I'm looking at it, the main thing that I'm looking at, because the four of us on the executive team are tied to revenue, so that is our job to hit a certain revenue number and a certain recruitment number, that is one of the main things that I'm looking at, is from a recruitment. And can I use it as a unique value proposition to attract agents? That's the number one thing I'm looking at it. And then, is it easy from an adoption, obviously usability rate? Can I get it the adoption rates to where I need them to be, which my overall goal is over 70%. Can I get it across that platform and get the usage? So I agree with you 100%. And sometimes we both make those decisions easy for me to make, but there's some other platforms out there that don't make it as easy, right? In terms of incorporating it. So yeah, see it all the time. But it should be the number one thing that they look at.
Yeah, I think it's, are you looking at it through a lens of recruit and retain? Because those are traditionally the two things that brokerages care about most.
Yeah.
Even if you have an agent productivity tool or a marketing tool,
100%.
it's still, how can I use this to recruit and retain?
Yeah.
And I think also just treating it as a true enterprise sales motion, where you have your internal champion. How do you make your internal champion look really good? And how do you make it easy for the internal champion to convey the message that needs to be heard by the rest of the organization? Because so many times you have a train the trainer
Yeah.
kind of model there, where your first level of sale is into the organization, but then your second level of sale is into the people who actually need to use it. So just make sure you're hitting on recruit, retain, right? Sean's value prop is very easy from that perspective, but then once he's in there, how do you make sure you get that utilization at 70%, which is an astounding figure, considering maybe, and Sean has these statistics, some brokerages only have 10, 15, 20% of agents that are actually performing.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
very true. Very true.
Yeah. It's a long tail game. Yeah, I think so my former role, I was a chief marketing officer, and so looking at a lot of the tech stack and how do we consistently innovate, recruit, retain, all of those things. And I was also at Compass at an early stage where essentially it was, sell the vision, not the reality. And so I think missing that story is a huge issue. Like, why spend money on something if you don't really understand what the elevator pitch is, and then make it easy for your agents to understand what the elevator pitch is? And then also, I think some brokerages are very eager and charmed by new and shiny things that will promise to make their lives easier. But what they're not really honest about is whether or not they are willing to partner with that product on and grow with it. So you're not going to have a perfect experience from the start. And that is part of what products are, a living thing. And so I think sometimes I've seen it on both sides, on the PropTech side and on the brokerage side, where the PropTech side doesn't set the expectation clearly enough that this doesn't exist yet. This is the reality of what it's going to feel like when you're actually onboarded. And then I've also seen brokerages, because I've worked with many brokerages, not fully invest emotionally in the fact that it's going to maybe feel a little bit clunky. You might be putting the wings on the plane as you're flying it. And some people can't stomach that.
Can I ask Lauren and Chanté a question? I don't know if that's
Of course.
Always.
So from the brokerage perspective, you can put your brokerage hats on. I think sometimes there's a tension when dealing with prop tech industry, when a tension between providing something to the agent's third party that is good, like really good, works, versus providing something that feels different, that they could access nowhere else. And this is a difficult decision that's typically around a build versus partner or build versus buy decision, right? Buy or rent the technology, however you want to think about it, right? So I'm curious what you think is the right approach. Maybe the answer should be different for different types of tech. I'm just curious how, with your brokerage hats on, how you approach that. Because I gather a lot of people listening will also be in the prop tech side. So it's good for them to hear your perspective on this.
Well, having done, we've integrated about 8 different types of software to custom build this tech stack over the past year, right? So it has been there. What I look at, and this may be a different thing, but a lot of times I don't want to build all the time because it takes too long. One, we don't have the team internally to build it, right? And it's going to take too long. I tried building certain things and I don't have the time and I don't have the time to scale. So a lot of times I'm going to buy, right? Because I'm going to trust the experts to do what we need to do and to build it. But one thing that I do want to say that is a little bit different in terms of how I evaluate who I'm working with in different prop tech firms is I'm looking at a true strategic partnership with somebody. I don't want to be a vendor to anybody. So I'm looking to build something together. If we're going to build it, we're going to build it together, meaning I want to help you grow as a business and I want you to help me grow, which means I'm going to hold you to certain KPIs to get me there on that overall growth, right? So for example, some of our partners that we use, like LP, for example, they are tied to certain metrics with me in terms of my growth journey to get me there. And we both have stake in the game. And I think that's very important doing that. And I think the other part is if it's new products, I want to try them. I want to test them. I want to make sure that we're both growing together as partners. So I'm growing revenue for the brokerage, right? And making our agents better, but I'm also helping you. So if I feel, I don't care if it's, if we're buying or building or whatever we're doing, if I feel like it's somebody who is just an order taker, I won't work with them. I don't care how great their product is. I am not going to work with them. I am working with somebody who sees a future and I'm going to partner with a long time and we're going to innovate together.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
That's me. But because I have done it the other way, even for example, like Sean, we had vendors at Compass. I mean, 3 of us here worked at Compass. You worked at Compass, 3 of us did, right? And I think I've brought on even people in the past and sometimes they just stop the innovation and they get comfortable. I don't like it when people are comfortable. So I test our agents, I test our brokerages, I test our marketing team, I test everybody to constantly be growing and innovating because if we're comfortable, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Now, that there's a balance because I don't believe in going and chasing the shiny object because it's cool and it's great. Is it going to work? Is it going to add to our 3 R's, which for me is recruitment, retention, and revenue? So that's where I would rather attract, and it's the same thing, Sean, like I want to attract the few that are great and who are going to use our product and do well with it and repel the no-sayers of the non-producers who I don't care about, right? So that's kind of how I weigh it.
Yeah.
Sorry for the long-winded answer, but it was
Great.
a little complex.
Great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently, since being a CMO, I've started my own brokerage consulting company. I've worked with a lot of the independent brokerages. And I think how I advise the CEOs and CMOs that I'm working with is to think about it from the perspective of what does success look like? When you're looking at your business a year from now, what are your goals? What are the things that are most important to you? And then that should determine how much emphasis, budget, time, focus, and energy you're putting into whatever it is really. And obviously then the tech stack is a part of that. So I really like to look at like what does success look like. I think the other two variables that I consider are like the demographic of the agents. If it's going to be something that requires a long runway for change management, you have to really sit and think about how like pick your poison, what like is the goal or the pain it's going to take to get there, the more important one. And then on the other side, Drew, I love what you said about internal champions, because I think so often where I've seen things go sideways is that sales closes the deal. We're now closed one, and now we're handed off to another team, and it all falls apart because the internal champion is not focused on, they're not being consistently and asked like, how's it going? What else do you need? Like as a sales team, that should be your person who is really telling you the reality of the situation. And you should use them as much as possible to make sure that the deal is going the right way. So so I think it depends. Like if I'm sensing that a team does not have that, ability to make sure that when I'm the one that internally I'm like, this is the thing, we need to be spending money on this, you better have my back. So if I'm sensing that that's not going to be the case, then I'm probably going to try to figure out like what's the MVP that would make the most sense if we truly need to do it, or I'm probably not going to work with you.
Yeah.
I think the other part that you brought up, which was a lot of PropTechs miss, a lot of them do, especially when selling to brokerage leaders. We want to partner with you, right? I want you guys, if a car's coming at 100 miles an hour coming towards me, I want you to move me out of the way, and I'm going to move you out of the way. I'm going to do the same thing. And Drew knows I use that analogy all the time. But you guys sell us, you bring us the salesperson, or you bring us the relationship guy or gal, and we fall in love with that person. Okay. Meaning we know the vibe. We know what all that is. We want to work with that person. You can't sell us and we are dating that person and then all of a sudden move them away and be like, okay, here's your customer success team. Right. And they don't know how we work. Right. It's very like with my team, for example, they have a blueprint of how I work, how I respond, how I do this, all this kind of stuff. And they get to know me. And the biggest thing that I see is we get this glorious, amazing person. And then we get customer success who has not been trained on our account, knows nothing about how we work. And most of the time when I let go of a vendor or a partner is because they pass us over. And then I'm not getting that experience anymore. And I'm just like, you did not take time to know me. You did not take time to know what we're doing. Often, for example, I want the person, if they're customer success, to be able to get on that call and be able to know, okay, who is first team? What have we done recently? Like literally just do a chat GPT search for 5 minutes and they bomb it. And I'm just like, I'm out at that moment in time. And don't just call me and pitch me. Don't send me emails all the time on LinkedIn saying, hey, but do you know anything about me? Like find 5 minutes, understand what I care about, and then I'll chat with you. But quit sending me random gift boxes and crap and all this other kind of stuff that I don't care about. Yeah.
I will say I recently received a candle from somebody and it smelled amazing.
By the way, we're doing that candle into a cologne. That was my idea. But yeah, that candle is now becoming a cologne. That's a Troy Palmquist drop on his home code advisors, right? But that's now coming.
So you brought up something really important, the knowledge transfer gap. And there are so many tools now that internally can solve for this, especially when you have something like an Otter or a Supernormal or your general note takers. And that's something that we also worked on. It's just like an internal ops thing, but you can automate every time that there's a message. It gets sent to a Zap or your CRM, and it summarizes the notes and it makes sure that when you go from sales to CS to whether it's client success or client support or somebody else on a different customer facing team, you're going to have the knowledge transfer. Just, I guess, word of advice for anybody getting into that space.
Well, now you know what we think on that. So that's, and how we evaluate exactly what we do.
I would actually love to follow up on Sean's question and ask you guys like an example of something you built that worked or didn't work. Or maybe it's two things, something you built internally that did work, something that didn't work. Or maybe we turn the tables entirely. Why did it
Yeah.
feel easy enough to build?
Why didn't it, or why did it?
Why did it feel easy enough to build in the first place?
Well, okay, to be fair, on one of them, I was taking something that we built at Compass and I already knew how it worked. So when I came in and I was building the NPS CSAT function, turning around for marketing and turning it into a true agency model, I had already built that. So all I did was taking all the logic that I already had, handing it over to a developer and saying, okay, I'm going to enhance this. So I know first response time, I know NPS, I can monitor everything to scale a department, right? So what I did is I just gave them the logic because I'd already built it and basically said, okay, we're going to enhance this logic. We're going to enable AI. This is what we're going to do. And that was very easy because I had already done it. Right. So and I knew which developer to hire to build it. So that was really easy for me to do it. When I'm working on so many different products that need to talk to each other, have single sign-on, everything like that, enable the AI to make them work smarter, you go to the expert. And I think what we do is I'm looking at how long is it going to take to get up? How painful is the process going to be? Do I want to work with you for this long period of time? And whatever you tell me, I'm going to buffer by another 3 months on average because I do that because I know that once we get into this build, something is going to change.
I do percentages.
I do percentages.
I'm
so
like,
if you tell
30%. I'm going to add 30%.
Yeah, if you tell me it's going to launch, if you sit here and we could do a contract and you're like, Lauren, it's going to launch in 90 days. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at 6 to 8 months. But I'm protecting you and just knowing that that's what the hell is going to happen, right? And I think it's just, when you're looking at that, you need to understand how fast you need to take a step back and understand how fast you need to build this to hit your goal, right? I had a $1 billion goal. I came in May. I had to hit the $1 billion goal by December. So I'm going to build that thing as fast as I can, and I'm going to choose the best. I'm not going to choose by price. I'm going to choose by quality and value. So that's what I do. And if it does not, any product that I choose, if it doesn't resonate with my 3 buckets that I'm responsible for the organization, which is recruitment, retention, and revenue, I don't do it. If it's a nice little shiny object thing, great. Put it in fourth quarter after I've hit my goals, but I don't touch it.
I think anybody who knows you knows that you ruthlessly focus on what matters and you're very KPI and numbers driven.
Yes.
I am like OKRs to the T. Yeah.
If you know what the end is, you can always build a roadmap to get there.
Exactly.
And that's what we do. Like, if we can build a roadmap, but we know what the goals are and you guys know what my goals are and we work backwards together, that's great. But I think that's rare. It's rare having 2 people, one on each side of the transaction, right? Partnering together that both can articulate that. Because normally it's only on your side. I'm going to be fair. Normally it's only on the PropTech side where you guys probe and you ask us questions. But to be met from, which I think is an advantage, to be met with somebody on our side who knows this stuff, who speaks your language, and can sit here and be like, this is where I want to be. This is where I need to get here. This is what it is. Can we do it? Boom. I think a lot more brokerages and people who are in CMO roles, which this goes into product market fit, absolutely have to be driven and handling and overseeing digital transformation and growth and revenue in our business. And if they are, then this makes it easier for you because it's not just the CTO. It is people who are actually driving the revenue and know what KPIs that need to be built. So you guys know what you're building and how to do it.
Yeah, I would broadly put brokerages into 3 categories. Those that don't know what they need to do.
Yep.
Those that know what they need to do, but are not committed to it.
Yep.
And those that know what they need to do and are committed to it.
And are committed.
And so,
And
Lauren,
it's
you're
very clear.
in the 3rd category. The 3rd category says, I want to be your strategic partner. Here's how we're supposed to go. The 2nd category is the most dangerous one because they'll sign up for your product, but then won't follow through on any of the things that help them get to where they want to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those that don't know what they need to be educated and they need to build that commitment, but it needs to come from themselves, not from a savvy sales pitch. And so, to your point, I don't think there are enough in bucket 3, but part of what, conversations like this and help to, illuminate that for folks that are thinking about where they should be going.
I think we're encountering I think this has been a long time coming where marketing itself as a division, Lauren and I were just talking about this, how we both love being marketing leaders. However, there is a tendency to pigeonhole marketing leaders into like, we make things pretty. And that is literally the
laughing
opposite. Like,
because
if you
you're
say that to Lauren and I, it will not be a great conversation because that's literally not what we do. If anything, we're actually more on the science than we are on the art side of marketing. And I think that we are at a very, very important part, especially for the independent brokerages, for them to, for lack of a better term, wise up, that you really need to have your marketing leader be the one who's focusing on the tech stack, really understanding like the quantitative side of the business and the initiatives, and like that should be the focus. I think it's very easy to hire a marketing generalist, and people like to be like, we need a marketing leader, but they actually like, they want someone who knows how to use Canva. They don't actually want someone who is a strategic partner within the business. And there, it will be very, very obvious, I think, in a few short years, which brokerage sits in those buckets that you laid out, Sean.
Yeah, and I think it's actually I was speaking generally, but I totally agree that it applies specifically to marketing. And I think part of the problem is the leaders of the brokerage may have a superficial or incomplete understanding of what each function is or should be, especially what's required of it kind of going forward. I don't think marketing any longer is kind of an execution function where it's like, here's a listing, here's a listing, go make a
A
postcard.
brochure
Right?
or a postcard. Yeah.
It is, it's a strategic function that's guiding, that kind of defines what it's deeply connected to the recruiting strategy. So which types of agents do we want to appeal to? How do we set up, Lauren, to your point, an agency that can allow us to best serve that function while also not being the most expensive thing out there, right? And so, there's kind of you can almost think of like a P&L within a function. And yeah, I don't see that level of thinking uniformly across, maybe that's the most diplomatic way I can say it, across every brokerage.
I see it in the next 2 years is the CMO should be leading digital transformation for all brokerages. Absolutely. And they're going to be the number one PropTech ally because they can explain the business needs, the revenue goals, they tie it to growth and expansion, right? And you'll still have the CTOs in there. I'm not saying you won't, but you're definitely going to see the CMOs having a bigger role and working a lot closer with you, which is a benefit because stuff is going to get done faster, executed better, profitability is going to go up, and adoption is going to go up.
Well, I think because as the function, marketing needs to know how to tell the story. I think I spent my first 3 to 5 years in real estate learning how to speak agent because it is a different language. You have to be able to like meet them where they're at. And in the beginning, I would like show up to a meeting with this amazing deck with all of these statistics, and the agent would be like, I don't know what you just said.
Oh my God.
And not that they don't understand statistics, but it's more like you need to meet them where they're at. And so I agree. I think you're still obviously going to need a CTO. I think the brokerages who think that their IT leader is a CTO, they need to really like understand the difference between those two functions as well. But I do think that there's going to be a major shift to the CMO owning the digital transformation and really thinking about this from being a true growth arm of the business, which I don't think it's being seen as that right now.
It is with us, but it's rare. It's rare. Okay, do we get to the fun questions?
Yeah, we haven't done fun questions
fun
yet.
questions, but these are fun questions. Okay, what is one metric?
This is super fun already, Lauren.
One thing. If you had to tattoo one thing onto a founder's head, across a founder's forehead, just one word, what would it be?
Just one word, not like a saying.
Word.
Wow.
Well, you could do a saying or a word. I mean, it depends on how small the font is, but yeah.
Help.
Yeah. That's good.
We'll get that done on at Inman. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it goes both ways, right? Help.
Yeah.
How can you help me? How can I help you? I'm always marketing, right?
Oh my God, you are.
There.
I'm so true.
Yeah.
I love that.
If you put your name, it would help you at conferences, I think.
That's true.
But Yeah. I saw someone wearing an EBITDA hat, so maybe EBITDA
Oh,
right
that's
there.
funny.
Oh my God, that'd be so great.
That's fun.
That would be so great. Okay. If you guys weren't doing this at all, and Drew, I already know you have previous careers, so you cannot pick those. Okay.
Yeah.
But what would have been like, and it could be as crazy as you want, what would have been like your career choice? Because I think this is what would have been your career choice if you
And
weren't doing
we will answer as well.
like one or two things. We'll answer as well. But yeah.
How realistic do we have to stay here?
Not at all.
You can figure this out, man.
If
Marine
it doesn't need to be
biology.
realistic, mine would definitely be competitive athlete.
Which
that's
sport?
great.
I'd love to be a soccer player.
Okay.
I follow the
Soccer.
sport religiously. But I mean, but even if I wasn't working in corded and I didn't have to work at some point, that's probably still not realistic. But let's just say I would,
Yeah.
like go climb Mount Everest, something like that, like something physical.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
something
not beating
fun.
anyone. I'm not beating it. Just Sherpas like running circles around you with all your bags, but like doing something like that where it
Cool.
kind of pushes. It's kind of equally difficult, but it's more difficult in kind of a practical sense as opposed to an
Mhm.
emotional sense. Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
I think there's an opening at Taipei 101 right now. That's Alex Honnold just scaled that sans rope. That was insane.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to go with, professional tennis player, but I can't go professional athlete after Sean. So
No.
maybe I'll go with like travel tour guide. Go see the
Really?
world, experience like amazing new things, meet incredible people who are like open-minded in a very cool and like vulnerable environment. I love creativity and exploration.
I love that.
I love that. So would you be like one of these people who like does these exotic tours like down the Amazon type thing?
Sure, if that's where we're going that week, absolutely.
So
But I want the flexibility to go wherever I want.
Yeah.
I love that.
Lauren, how about you?
If I had to go down my path prior to marketing, I probably would have been like a Broadway singer
Wow.
prior. Because I was touring before that and I grew up in that world. So that's probably where I would be.
Wow.
But
That's so
yeah.
cool.
Cool.
We're going to take you to the Stardust Diner in New York.
What are we doing?
The Stardust Diner. We're going to get you up singing with all the waitresses.
Yes.
Oh boy, here we go. It's birthday week. So yeah,
Amazing.
we'll figure it out.
Okay, so
Matt, where are you at?
I'm going to go against what I said earlier about when I get annoyed with people assuming that I just make things pretty, but I would be an interior designer if I wasn't doing this. I do that as much as I can on the side right now, but I think that's what I would be doing. Or I would be like professionally, I would probably be a carpenter.
What?
I have
Really?
a garage full of tools. Yeah, people don't know this about me. I have a garage full of tools. We've moved houses. Like my husband and I, we like will buy old houses and do them, live in them for a little while, and then we move on. And every time we've moved, the movers are like, "Oh my gosh, your husband has so many tools." And I'm like, "No, those are all mine."
Great.
Oh
So-
my
But
God.
an interior designer can be very technical. My wife's an
That's
interior
true.
designer. She lives in CAD.
That's true,
Just,
actually.
the color of the pillows. So maybe it's similarly misunderstood.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
love that.
appreciate this conversation. This was great.
This was so much fun. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.